Warning, the following audio transmission is based on theory and is intended for entertainment purposes only. It's Doomsday and its affiliates will not be held liable for anything your dumbass does. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome everybody to It's Doomsday podcast. Today is March 15th, 2022. Time is 21:58. I am your host, codenamed Jester. And we are back with Secrets Revealed Part 2. I hope that you guys really enjoyed what Shawn had to say. I hope you really enjoyed Part 1. If you're just listening to this episode, you have to go back and listen to Part 1 first, or else it's not going to make any sense. Go back right now, stop this, go back and listen to Part 1. We are wrapping this up in this second part, guys. I hope all of you enjoyed what you've heard so far. Thank you for being a listener. Again, you can find Shawn on TikTok at Shawn P, Starry. Alright? Go on there, look him up. And if you guys are enjoying this show, if you guys are liking the live shows, be sure to catch these live every Sunday evening at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. But listen to the rest of the message, guys.
When I found out about this, I contacted my boss, Allied, and he wanted nothing to do with it. So then I called the police department in town. They said it's the sheriff's problem because we're kind of on the outskirts of town. So the sheriff came out. I told him what had happened. He made a report, but he said, I don't think anything is going to come of it. Even though he's seen the video, nothing ever came of it. So then I reached out to my contact at the White House, who got me together with Rudy Giuliani, Trump's lawyer, and I sent him the videos. Now, I haven't heard anything back from that, but I can tell you, ever since that day, the FBI has been making my life a living hell. Because when the riots took place, I came home after that second day. Antifa followed me to my house, or Antifa, BLM, whatever you want to call it. They came to my house, tried to kill me and my wife. Okay. I ended up home. I got on them. My wife called the cops. When the cops showed up, the guy backed off. He had a machete in his hand at the time. The city cops actually came up to me and said, just go inside and just go to sleep. And they let the guy go. Not even a ticket, absolutely nothing. So I knew at this point I was
Hold on,
down.
Shawn, that would imply that the city PD was either in on this as well, or they were briefed to let this guy go.
I wouldn't say that they were directly implicit to this, but I could definitely see how they were influenced because of what's going on in the current climate at the time. What I wish I would have had at the time was I wish I would have had the security camera footage of it, but I didn't. But what was interesting was after the 4 other officers left, and then one officer came back, and he told me, he said, the next time something like this happens, just shoot the person, and then we'll just make a report, and then we'll go from there. And I thought that was kind of odd, So over the rest of the time, from that point on, my wife and I have been tailed, and we have been followed by the FBI. Whether it was we go to Walmart, for example, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were followed by 4 FBI agents in Walmart the whole time. The only way I knew that they were FBI agents is because we went to go to self-checkout. They were trying to play off as they were checking stuff out. One of them pulled out his wallet, and there was an FBI badge with his credentials that was displayed right in his wallet. When we went to a restaurant a week ago, and while we're sitting my back is always on next to a wall, okay? So we're sitting next to a window, and a government issue plate car is driving by real slow. The window on the passenger window's down, and this guy's got a cell phone out, and he's recording us while we're eating, okay? And then 4 days ago, we had gone over to my brother-in-law's apartment, and we're sitting there, and we're watching some golf championship match or something on TV, and the same car was coming through the parking lot. It came up by the front of his window, and the passenger window was down. The guy was recording us. And right off the bat, I got up and looked at the window, and as they were taking off, I could see it was government issue plates. So I got the license plate number, and I went to the police department, and I told them, I said, this is what the plate number was and stuff. They ran the plate, and they found out that car is from the FBI division office out of Rockford, Illinois. So ever since then, we've been followed, you know, simply because of my involvement with the election, my involvement with the coronavirus situation. Before my last detail working for Allied, I was working at a vaccination clinic or vaccination center, in Rockford with the U.S. Army. Now, here's what my job was. My job was to make sure that when the people who got the vaccination shots, after they got the shots, they had to go sit in the chair, wait 15 to 30 minutes, just in case if anything happens, right? So whenever something did happen, somebody started having a seizure or started vomiting, whatever it was, they would take them to the back corner. It was a white tent that stands up for privacy. They would call me back there so that family members or other people couldn't come around to see what was going on. 19 days I've worked there, 19 people died, and at least 3 people a day were severely injured. They had an ambulance, not your typical regular ambulance, but a government-issued ambulance waiting right outside that door in case if something happens. They would come in very quickly. They would grab the person. If they died, they would put them in the black bag, zip them up, and cover it with a white blanket, and they would push them out along the side of that wall right out that door as fast as they could. At the end of that, this is what a lot of people don't know. I took some pictures while I was there. I'm trying to be as incognito as possible. And one of the other guards that was working for a different company was doing the same thing, and he got caught. Now, ever since after that 19th day, my boss calls me and says they don't want me coming back there anymore because they're not going to be doing that anymore. They're not doing any more vaccinations at that place. I said, oh, okay, that's fine. That's when I noticed that the FBI stepped up their presence and followed me around. They've been following my wife around quite a bit. I work mostly from home, so I do a lot of security consulting. And I don't do the travel part anymore, but I work from home. Basically, they address the problem to me, so that's how I get paid, how I make a living. So, yeah, I've got security cameras up on my home. They can't hack into it, so it's all direct line fed in. And I can see when they do come by my house In the past, I've had agents actually walking up my driveway, and I would come outside and ask them if I could help them. Why were they here? If they wouldn't say anything, they would just turn around and walk out. Um, so it's been a long ride, and I have my predictions on what's going to happen over the next 4 years.
Hey preppers, do you want 10% off survival food? Go to www.readywise.com and use code DOOM10 at checkout for 10% off all your survival food needs. Again, that's code DOOM10 at checkout at readywise.com, DOOM10 for 10% off at readywise.com. Well, Shawn, before you get into that, I want to go back to this the COVID injuries and deaths at the vaccine area where they were doing the vaccines at. So you said you were there for 19 days. You witnessed 19 deaths, and I'm just trying to put kind of statistics together in my mind about how many people would you say a day came through that area that were getting vaccinated?
I want to say roughly about 30 people.
Oh wow! So that's a pretty high it's a pretty high rate of death. 1 in 30 approximately.
Yeah, 1 in 30 would die, and 3 out of 30 would end up with injuries.
Wow, that's pretty high.
Yeah.
And it really makes me wonder. I know a lot about Allied. Your roots clearly go deeper there than mine do, but it really makes me wonder how many different facilities were implementing the same exact thing, right, at these vaccine sites. I know now you could walk into a Walmart, you could walk into a CVS, pretty much everywhere will give you the vaccine now. And it kind of makes me wonder, at the time, I don't know. It's hard for me to put my finger on what could have been going on in the media initially when all this was going on, because it seems like now the vaccine's not even really talked about in the media. It seems like the Russia-Ukraine thing has totally just buried that.
Yeah. Right? Well, here's what's interesting. When I was working at the vaccine clinic, I guess if you want to call it that, I was talking with the commander at the time. It was Lieutenant. I'm not going to say what his last name is, so I don't want to get him in trouble. But I had asked him. I said, "Is there an adverse reaction list? Is there a piece of paper that comes with the vaccines that would say what the adverse reactions are?" And that piqued his interest. And he said, "Yeah, let's go look." So he grabbed a box and pulled out the paper. And he opened up the paper. The thing was about the size of a door, and there was nothing written on that. There was absolutely nothing. The only thing that's written is Palazzo Maxwell Pharmaceutical Company. And then it shows off the listing at the side. It says it comes from China. But there's absolutely nothing on there. It doesn't tell you what the formula compound. It doesn't tell you how it was made. It doesn't tell you what the adverse reactions were. Nothing. And that really got his attention. And it got my attention. And we started asking questions to each other, more or less, saying what exactly is in these vaccines to begin with. And one of the nurses was there, and we got to talking with her, and she said, well, whenever they do a vaccine clinical trial, they do control studies. In the control studies, they have the actual virus or the dead virus, supposed to be a dead virus within the vaccine itself, okay? They inject it into your body recognizes that, okay, here's a virus, but it doesn't realize it's dead, but that body starts building up, receptor cells start building up your defense systems to fight and attack it. And once it does, it's encoded into your DNA. Okay, now we can recognize it whenever you do get a live virus, any kind of that particular virus, whether it's live or dead, enters your bloodstream, and the body starts. It has a immune system to defend the body from it. Okay. The other side of the clinical trial study, in the control study, is what they call the placebo. Now, what is a placebo? It's just basically saline solution. And she says when they did placebo studies back in the day with aspirin, it was a sugar tablet. Now, what is the placebo? What does it do? It doesn't really do anything. Okay. Now, some people that take a pill, it might be more psychosomatic. Then suddenly they feel better. Okay. But the truth is, it's just a sugar pill. It doesn't have any effect. It has no adverse reactions. It's basically you're just drinking water. It's nothing. Okay. So when we started talking about how many people were actually receiving the actual virus being introduced into their body, we started kind of trying to do up the math. And based on what we could see, about 30% of the population actually received the virus. Chances are those are going to be the ones that died who have had serious injuries resulting from it. And the rest of them received a placebo. Now, to the MK Ultra studies that the CIA had done, they conducted the same method, the same formula as the way pharmaceutical companies do. They would use LSD. The idea was how can we control your mind and without you ever knowing where the programming came from, okay? And they found out that when the internet became readily available in 1995, and so then they introduced the social engineering program, which we all know today is Facebook, Twitter, all those things. And if a person spends at least 15 minutes on those platforms without their knowledge that they're being programmed, they don't realize it. They think it's harmless. TikTok has a much more higher algorithm program, so it's actually more effective than Facebook is. But over time, people have been waking up because this social engineering portion of this social engineering program is failing because of people like us that come onto the platform, and all we're doing is we're putting the crumbs out there. Okay, we're putting the clues, the little pieces of nuggets of truth, just a little nugget at a time. So we're doing exactly the same thing the government is doing with, I want to say, it's the MK Ultra program. Okay, we're putting the opposite of what they're putting out there, but we're using the same model. We're giving them that pieces of truth, trying to help them, snatch it up or even pique their interest. Once you pique somebody's interest, now all the lies that they've been telling people starts to unravel. So eventually, over time, we're seeing now more and more Democrats are waking up. They're seeing exactly what is happening. Not so much the fact that they voted for Biden in the Democrat National Party, but they're seeing the lies. We're taking old videos that the DNC did, their candidates said, and we're putting that back out there. And people are saying, wait a minute, I thought Trump said this. Oh no, it was Biden saying this. And so people are starting to come around and say, whether they're confused and exhausted, point being is it piques their interest. So now this MK Ultra program that we're using against the government to wake the people up to the truth is start to take effect. And more, you're going to start to see more people waking up. That's why I think that when Trump runs for presidency again, it's going to be a massive landslide this country has never seen before.
Now, Shawn, I got to ask you, before I get into that, guys out there in the chats, everybody that's listening, we're going to need a good episode title for the show. So if you guys want to throw some ideas out there, please do so, because I'm having trouble trying to figure out what we're going to title this. But Shawn, do you think Trump will run again in 2024? I know there's a lot of speculation on that, and I would love to hear if you think he is and why.
He will. He's in his close circles. He's already announced that he's going to, because he's already implemented this. Well, I want to say anti-military industrial complex program. Okay. He's trying to do exactly what John F. Kennedy was going to do. But DNC found out what John F. Kennedy was planning on doing was he was going to dissolve the CIA. And that's the reason why JFK was assassinated. So Trump knew about this, and he's trying to undo. He wants to abolish the CIA. He wants to abolish the military-industrial complex altogether, because they are the root cause for all the world's problems today, with all the wars and all the frauds, the drug problems that you see today, all the chaos that is being perpetrated by the DNC. And that's what he wants to do. I know he's coming back. He's already got a system set in place. But I believe that when he does come back, he's basically going to bring the United States back to what it was in 1917, okay, before the big bankers decided to take over. And one of the things I believe he's going to abolish is the Federal Reserve.
So, because this is kind of like in my area of like what I do for a living, with what do you think the fallout would be with the Federal Reserve? Would it just involve like a rebuilding of it, or would they completely eliminate it?
I believe that what he's going to do is he's got a plan. Trump isn't just going to just dissolve something without replacing it with something else. So he was talking. One of the things he did was he delisted the United States government, or the United States of America, from the corporations while he was in office. Okay, so what he brought back was the republic of this country. That was his first step. Now, when he comes back into office, he's going to start replacing these particular programs. But his aim, his goal is to shrink and limit the federal government. And one of the big things is I believe he's going to push. Right now we have going on, it's called the Conventions of States. And we have 19 states already that have signed the Conventions of States. So we need 4 more. Once we get the 4th one, what happens is a representative from that state who signed the Convention of States, they will go to Washington, D.C. And from that point, Congress cannot do anything, okay? They will be they're going to be adding to the Constitution. They're going to limit the Congress 2 terms, a total of 16 years. They're also going to be adding that if they've served in Congress or served as the president, they can no longer, once the term is up, they can no longer serve in a federal capacity. They will not be getting any benefits after they leave office. Also, too, is they're going to be putting limits on to anybody in the three branches of the government. They cannot have any dealings with the stock market. If they are, then essentially they get charged with a capital crime.
Mm-hmm.
The other big one is a president cannot appoint a Supreme Court justice. If someone wants to become a Supreme Court justice, they have to go and get themselves. They have to get a petition of signatures, just like anybody else does, and get on a ballot. And then it's the people of the United States, the citizens themselves, will have absolute control over who gets elected. And Supreme Court justices also will have 2 terms as well, a total of 16 years. So they can't sit on the Supreme Court for more than 16 years in their tenure. So by putting restrictions on all 3 branches of government and shrinking the government down, replacing some of the programs that are already there that are going to be essentially whoever is going to be running that agency, they're going to have to be on the ballot. They're going to have to be elected by the people. Okay, so the idea is that he's going to give the power back to the people, let the people decide through the ballots. So that's why it's really crucial right now. That's all. What he was saying before he left office, he says, just remember, they're not after me. They're after you. I'm just in their way.
So it almost sounds like we can look forward to him being shot before he gets a chance to run for office based off of all of that. I mean,
yeah, I'm sure. I mean, he's a pretty smart guy. I mean, he knows what he's up against. What he's really fighting is the military-industrial complex. So here's my theory, okay? My theory is before he gets elected again, the United States is going to enter a second civil war. But it's not going to be like the North and the South. What it's going to be is we, the people, are going to be fighting Congress. The Congress and President Biden, could be Biden, it could be Harris, one of the two. They're going to declare martial law. They're going to try to lock this country down, and they're going to send out the military-industrial complex, not the U.S. Army, but the military-industrial complex, to come and subdue the American people. And that's when you're going to...
Would that involve then, because they wouldn't be able to do the military for multiple reasons, but that, and they also risk the military being against them as well. But would they have to bring in UN for that? Is that where the military-industrial complex is going to come in?
The UN was going to be a big part. They're going to play a big hand in the military-industrial complex. Yes, they are part of the military part. They're the what do we call it? The short arm of the law.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be the police officers essentially. Now, the problem I kind of wanted to share. So if you take a look at history, how did Rome fall? Well, Rome was doing the same thing we're doing today. Our political leaders are doing today. They've been causing crimes against humanity with the bioweapon labs, the chemical labs, with creating a false narrative, or I should say, creating a situation, and then they try to come in and they use the media to say, "Oh, this Muhammad al-Gaddafi or Saddam is a bad guy," and they stage events like 9/11 to rally the people to get behind them, so then they can go in justify it by coming in and so if you think about all the things, all the wars that we've been involved in, they're going to turn it against the American people. They will eventually, and what's going to happen is you're going to see an outbreak of fighting that's going to be happening all across this country. And the reason for that is because they're going to realize that they're losing their foothold, they're losing their control, because of people like you and me spreading the truth, all these the nuggets of truth. And people are going to pick up on it. They're going to be realizing, wait a minute, our government is so corrupt. It's even more corrupt than we thought. And what do we do with this information, And all we have to do is take a look at today. Gas prices as high as it's ever been. We've had toilet paper shortages. Okay, so gas shortages, goods. There's a shortage of goods. Shortages of service. We can see that in our internet. We see censorship. So these are all the key elements. These are all, we want to call it, precursors to a coming civil war. And once this, I believe this civil war is going to take place before Trump comes back into office. Now, how does this relate to preppers? Well, real simple. When the conflict starts, you're going to see there's going to be a massive gasoline shortage. There probably won't be any gasoline to places that are not within big cities. Okay, you're going to see electricity getting shut off. Like remote places, that's where it's going to start with remote places. Factories, government buildings, there'll be a continuity of electricity and services to them and to them only, because that's their guarded infrastructure. But as far as everybody else, there's going to be forced into rations, food. There's going to be a food shortage, there's some gas shortages. So that's why it's really, really crucial, because of everything that's going on, all the precursors that are coming into play. This is the reason why people need to start stocking up, saving, learn how to can your food. You can can meat, and it'll keep for a long time. You're going to have to figure out where you're going to come up with electricity, which is one of the things I'm doing right now, is building a generator that takes absolutely no fuel whatsoever. It's a simple concept. An engineer friend of mine in India, him and I have been collaborating, working on this. He's been making some videos, and what I'll do is I will post that on my Telegram page. I don't want to post it on TikTok because TikTok has shut me down 4 times already. I've lost 4 pages, so I'm gonna post it on my Telegram page. So you can go there, you can copy it down, you can put it up on your pages or whatever you want to do with it. But I'm gonna put it there for people to see. And basically, the concept and the way it works is this: you have a electric motor, 2 alternators. 2 alternators are one on each side of the electric motor. They're going to be run conjointly to each other. Now, the one alternator is going to be basically feeding a power source to the electric starter, or the electric motor, excuse me. So, alternator to electric motor. So, that's the only break in that is going to be a switch. The other alternator is going to be producing your electricity for you, and that goes to an AC/DC converter. To a battery bank, then to your AC/DC converter, and then you can run it into your breaker box if you want. And so I'm building a unit. Basically, this is what it does. He's done the first portions of it, and I'll download the video on my Telegram. You can see it, but it works. And he's able to produce 220 volts of electricity concurrently. And he was able to basically take it from AC to DC. So you have a direct current. So you can be able to run your refrigerator, you can run your furnace, or however you need, whatever you need for your electricity. And the one big reason why I'm doing this is because not only for my future survival, but because of my current state. My house was hit by a flood 3 years ago, as I said before, We still have not received any FEMA. We've not received any help from anybody. Okay, I'll put it this way: the state government has blackmailed our city government by telling them not to allow us to be able to pull a permit to hire somebody, a contractor, to come in and fix our homes if we want to. Our insurance companies were instructed to drop us because they didn't want us to. They want us to basically abandon our homes so the city can come in and take it over by eminent domain. That's their objective. But because they know that they can't just take our homes, and the ones we are still here, they have to buy us out. So I know that in the 3 years that we were here, we have had no electricity at all in our house. So we've had to actually learn how to live just like our ancestors did without electricity. And I've learned a lot of valuable skill sets along the way. However, though, electricity makes life a lot easier in a lot of respects, especially if I want to run powered.
Shawn, I want to jump in here for a second. I got a question here in the chats I want to address. When we are coming up on our time frame here, we got about 20 minutes left.
Okay.
Eric Kirk, aka the Podfather, in the chats says, "I'd be interested in Shawn's thoughts about repeals of the 16th and 17th Amendments. 16th gave us the IRS. 17th has to do with U.S. Senate switching from state legislator governor appointments to direct elections." So he's got your thoughts on that. And also, being that we only do have the 22 minutes left, I did after that want to try to segue into your next 4-year predictions. I know you talked about mentioning that. I don't know if that was with everything you said or if there was more. And if there is more, I'd love to hear it. But I'd like to address Eric's question here about the 16th and 17th amendments. Your thoughts on that, if you don't mind.
Okay. My thoughts is it's going to be real simple. 16th to 17th Amendment is going to be reconstituted. What I mean by this is that the wording is going to be changed to where they're going to restrict the government's ability to abuse the tax system. From what I understand from my conversations with my contact with Trump, what Trump's agenda or his plans are is he doesn't want to abolish the IRS completely, but he wants to rename it. But what he's going to do with the tax, as far as the tax code goes, he's going to try to bring the United States back to prior to 1917, where the only people that were paying federal taxes is going to be the large corporations. Now, in that particular line of wording is those big corporations, they back, and you got to realize back in the day, the big corporations, they paid 4% of whatever they made, they paid 4%. But those big corporations did not pass that tax down the line to the buyer. So if you went to a gas station, you didn't pay a tax on that gas. If you wanted to buy food, you didn't pay tax on the food. The only taxes that you actually paid is to your local government, which means your property taxes, okay? And so those property taxes is basically what pays for the local government, and the local government divvies that tax out. That's the money that pays for the school teachers, anybody that's involved in working for the city government. So the consumer itself, they will not pay any taxes out of their wages. There's no wage tax whatsoever, none. That's on the national level, state level, and local level. There's no wages. All you will get 100% of your wages. That's your money. Because they make the money, the government makes the money based on the fact that you have 100% of your wages and you go out and you buy stuff, the consumer buying goes up. And when consumer buying goes up, those big corporations make more money. When they make more money, they pay a little bit more in taxes. So the federal government at that time in 1916, they were in a surplus, in a massive amount of surplus. They had way more money then than we are in debt today. So that gives you an idea, and a stark contrast, what happens when I want to say 1933 is when they developed the IRS, not the IRS, but the Federal Reserve System.
1913. It was in the teens when they developed it. They went off the gold standard in 1933.
Right. Okay, so I got to wrote down here. So when they had the Federal Reserve set up, now understand the Federal Reserve was created because of the panic of 1907.
Yes.
The financial panic of 1907.
Mhm.
Now understand that it was okay, so the top four banks in the world at the time, they were the ones that were in control of the entire financial market. Okay. They create these ripples of panic to get consumers to start buying more stocks, buy more goods. And because of that little deal, which they did on purpose, so that the Congress would come out and they would pass this Federal Reserve. Now, the banks have direct influence. They have their hands literally inside the Federal Reserve, and they control the interest. So they can manipulate the interest to go up or down. And they do this to their benefit, but not to our benefit. So I believe the Federal Reserve will eventually go away. And it's going to go back to the scaling model, what it was prior, but there's going to be some restrictions. There's going to be more oversight on how these banks are regulating their prices and how they're trying to regulate the interest. So,
well, like what concerns me about eliminating the Federal Reserve is you would then put the printing of money back in the government's hands, and that's where that modern monetary theory comes in, where they don't care about the debt, they don't care about the deficit. Since they're a sovereign entity, they can borrow money from themselves and they can print as much money as they want to pay for any kind of spending program they want. And then they turn any form of taxation into a means of countering inflation instead of to cover spending. So,
well, see, this is the thing. We have been conditioned for so long by the governments and the central banking system for so long on be dependent upon the Federal Reserve System. Okay, now you got to understand the Federal Reserve System is owned, operated, and controlled by the four top largest banks in the world. Bank of London is the number one. Okay, so when we take away the Federal Reserve and replace it with something else, okay, that is where it's going to be having oversight by the people, um, your state, local representatives, the Congress, the president, and anything that would be of intrinsic value that would they have to, we got to amend this, then it would have to go on a ballot. So this gives the power back to the people to decide if this is something that we need to vote for, or this is something that where the World Bank wants to control this again. And then we can go back and say, no, we vote no. This is, like here, for example, they wanted to create a government position for a city manager. Okay. So I know the city manager is basically another word for dictatorship, because the mayor and the alderman are going to take a work part-time. Okay, they're going to have a lot less responsibilities. If that's, and I know that's a bad thing. So I voted no. However, a lot of people in town were bamboozled, you know, by the DNC into believing this is a good thing for us because, we can get stuff done. Well, maybe so, but we're giving all the power just to one guy, and we did not elect him, but we elected to have that government seat. Now, if somebody in the city just collects 1,000 signatures, goes to the city and say, hey, we don't want this guy working for the city anymore. So then the city officials will have to look at it and say, okay, we're going to put this on a ballot. We're going to put this, basically fire the guy, right? We still have that, but it's just like with the Federal Reserve. They're going to take the Federal Reserve out and replace it with something where the people themselves and the representatives are going to have the absolute control over the Federal Reserve, not the people in the financial industry, because they've been manipulating the system since the creation of Federal Reserve. See? So they basically say how much it is for a price for a gallon of gas. Now, imagine if everybody in the United States was in control of how much they think gas is worth, right? If everybody actually knew that if we had every single well drilling for oil, realizing that we would never run out of oil because it self-replenishes itself, okay? The oil replenishes itself. We could be drilling oil for the next 10,000 years and we will still never run out, okay? That's the truth about the nature of the planet. So how did these, people, what happened? We were told a lie. They were told a lie so they can control how much the price for gasoline is going to cost. It's just the same thing with the financial industry. They manipulate and control. They've got their hand inside that Federal Reserve. So by removing the Federal Reserve and replacing it with something else, where our state legislatures and people like you and I, we have a voice, we have a say in how we want this to be, and this is what our founding fathers originally wanted for us. That's why they designed the Constitution, the base guideline of the Constitution for us, so that we could understand that when we allow the government to expand and keep growing bigger and bigger, we're basically giving up our freedom little by little, to the point that one day we're going to wake up and we're going to realize we have no freedoms left. But that's okay, because they tell us that we're going to be safe and secure. We're going to be secure. We're going to have security. Nothing bad's going to happen to us. Doesn't that sound pretty familiar with what's going on with Ukraine and Russia?
Oh, it absolutely does, Shawn, 100%. And I just want to throw out there that we have about 10 minutes left, a little less than that. And then we're going to hit our time limit for the evening. We are going to come back with a second show this evening, but it is going to be more lax. We are going to have more of an open platform style show. But Shawn, with the last 10 minutes we do have here, I do want to make sure you can plug yourself, tell people where to find you. Maybe if they want to get in contact with you, drop you a line. Maybe if they want to have you on other shows on this platform. And I know Eric's calling in real quick, so we're going to give sorry, Eric, I just missed that. Hold on, buddy. I know Eric's calling in, so he's probably got a crap, I missed it. There it is. There, I got you now, Eric. What's up, buddy?
Hey preppers, do you want 10% off survival food? Go to www.readywise.com and use code DOOM10 at checkout
for 10% off all your survival food needs. Again, that's code DOOM10 at checkout at ReadyWise.com, DOOM10 for 10% off at ReadyWise.com.
Good evening, good morning to anybody, listening to this live. But this has certainly been a great show with Shawn and of course Jester and Michael being like co-hosts and moderators hosting Shawn on this episode. But here on Podbean we do have like a great roster of content creators and friends who pride themselves as free thinkers and truth seekers and people who believe in common sense and I think friends of yours like from TikTok and as well as here on Podbean would probably be interested in checking out shows that Jester supports like including the Slightly Serious show with James and you also have the John DeVito show and the John Gale program and then Michael's Real Conservative Talk program and you also have other great shows like the Ralph Williams podcast, The Gray Area, the Old Man's podcast with Dina, Joe, and Eric, and then the Dude Man podcast with Frank and Mike on weekends, and then you also have Solid Blue Sister and her co-host Crucible who do a show called My Turn to Talk, and trying to think up a few other names, Freedom Warrior out of the Netherlands and then Marcos out of Brazil. There's some very good and remarkable podcast friends, and then Baremu out of Scotland, and the Mike Tampa Bay podcast, and then Jeremy who does the Seek and Find podcast. It used to be Cummings' Culture and the Kirkley Hennessy Show, and then of course South Ozman and the Axiom World Alliance with Jack and Shannon Lynn, who's in the chat this evening, and then Scooter and Spanky with the Beans and Weenies Show comedy podcast, and then and a few other great friends who who believe in keeping conversations like this going.
Well, thank you for that, Eric. And being that we are coming up here on our time limit, I want everybody to thank Shawn for coming in as a guest tonight and taking the time to participate in its Doomsday podcast and giving us really good content, really great information. And I know that Shawn is going to be coming back at some point to do another episode on how to make propane at home, which may not be a live show. That may be a published show. Just throwing that out there, everybody. And if Shawn, if you want to go ahead and just tell people that are listening where they could find you at.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. If you want to find me, you can find me on TikTok. My name is Shawn Patrick Starry under TikTok, or you can find me on Telegram. And I posted on this here where you can find it. It's actually under my consulting business, which is Home Security Consultant LLC on Telegram. Those are the two best methods, the two best ways to, if you want to get a hold of me for anything, or you want to see whatever content I put out there, little nuggets of truth, you can ultimately just kind of do your research and make up your own mind as to what you think is going on or how it applies to you. So the best advice I can give you is this: continue to be a critical thinker, and just, continue to do your research. As far as prepping goes, continue to listen to the show. There's a lot of good information. As far as being a prepper myself and being a survivalist, I can tell you this. Just start connecting with people who are experts in their field and collect information and, field test it yourself. And this is the best way to do it.
This is an emergency action message. At approximately 1 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, NORAD is tracking 15 ICBM nuclear missiles inbound to the following cities: Orlando, Miami, Pittsburgh, Dover, Newark, Richland, Philadelphia, New York City, Baltimore, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Boston, Seattle, Detroit. This is an extremely deadly situation. Stay tuned. The next emergency message will be a presidential address.